Finally leaving the sex hotel.
I'll be glad to see the back of that thing.
Oh my god, it was pretty freaking rough in there.
It's absolutely awful.
Manner of noises coming out of people's windows.
What's
through
going
the
on
walls.
here?
I can go through here. Check it out.
No, I mean the car.
Oh, the car. Yeah.
How's the car gonna get through this? Oh well. Never mind.
Right, before we get into this, let's explain exactly what's going on. You're probably wondering what a sex hotel is, and you know, it's kind of interesting.
Are you? Is anyone wondering that?
Well, I mean, yeah, well, I think all the hotels are sex hotels.
They could be.
Yeah, they have the potential.
However, this sex hotel was in the theme of Titanic.
Well, our room was.
Yeah, our room.
We were filming Conquering Northern China. We're in this place called Panjin, and they wouldn't allow foreigners to stay anywhere.
No,
okay?
This is in northern China, and the weird thing is it's in a tourist town.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let foreigners stay anywhere.
So foreigners couldn't stay. We tried business hotels. We tried normal hotels. And finally, the only place that would allow foreigners to stay, because it's kind of like you only go there for a short time and no questions are asked.
It's off the books.
Exactly. It was a love hotel or sex hotel. And we got our driver. Remember, the Chinese driver stayed in that really gaudy room. It had like lips on the wall. And,
and like a heart-shaped bed.
Yeah, it's terrible. And we got the Titanic room. If you've seen the documentary, you would have seen it. But it's ridiculous. We'll put a clip. But it was actually a boat
ship.
Yeah. So you could do the whole like Leo and you know.
You could do that scene, and then next to it was vibrating eggs and lube.
It was terrible.
So we had to stay in there together on the same bed.
On the same. It was awful.
And there was mirrors above us.
The mirrors on the ceiling. It was just like, what's going on? Anyway, one of the most awkward nights ever in my entire existence.
We didn't act out the scene.
No, don't worry.
Well,
about
we did
it.
in the show.
You did. You were standing on the bow of the ship. Anyway, so this is us leaving. I'll play it now in the background, make us a little smaller. This is us leaving. I just want you to get an idea of the traffic that you find in these smaller cities in China. It's chaos.
This is a tiny town.
Yeah.
You'd think, a tiny town. It's just as bad as like gridlock traffic in New York City, except more chaotic.
Yeah, I'll get us out of there so you can actually see what's going on here.
It's wild.
You know, they won't let you in, so you kind of have to, like I'm doing here, I had to cut
bad
in.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's the only way. Otherwise, you'll never get in.
No, you'll die in that parking lot.
Absolutely. And in the beginning, we were asking, what about the car? Because they'd ripped up the pavement, and the only way in and out of that parking lot was over there.
The cameramen.
Yeah, and the cameramen were in the car. They were going to follow us, right?
Yeah.
So what we were going to do in this particular area is we were going out to find some crabs. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm pretty sure you could find crabs in that hotel. But that's not the kind of crabs.
Hopefully we didn't find them.
No, of course not. No, what we were trying to do is literally, we'd heard about these rice paddies. Mm-hmm. And they raise crabs in the rice paddies. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is you go there and, you know, they catch them out of the rice paddies and stuff.
It's cool.
I mean, it's a nice idea. The thing is that these people had told us that, yes, come and see the crabs in the rice paddies. When we arrived there, they were like, oh, sorry, but it's not the season now. They're not ready. You won't be able to see any.
It's almost the season.
Yeah. But they told us, we called them literally that morning.
Right.
Can we come see the crabs? They're like, yeah, come see them. And then when we get there, oh, no, there's nothing to see.
And they knew that.
Yeah.
You know what we did see? Well, first we crashed a drone.
Oh, yeah, that happened.
And then second, we found out that really horrendous herbicide chemicals were being used in the crab patties.
Yes. We've got footage of that. We'll get to that.
Yes.
But, you know, we decided for this episode we'd like to just touch on the troubles that China faces when it comes to the polluted land, polluted water,
food production,
chemicals in the food, hormones that they use. So we got a couple of stats, and you'll see us roll up on the rice paddy soon, but just a little bit more of this.
So this is something that we never talked about in depth in China because it's rather hush-hush, and you can actually get in trouble. A good example of that is a Chinese woman who put together a documentary called Under the Dome, which talked about the severity of China's pollution because it kills children. Yeah. It kills old people.
And it's because her daughter developed a respiratory illness.
It kills millions of people per year in China. It's akin to smoking cigarettes dipped in plastic in some areas, right?
Sure.
So she made a documentary. She was silenced. I believe she was arrested.
Well, they banned her documentary.
And they banned the documentary. I think she faced legal consequences.
Remember the guy who successfully made this big petition about a factory that was polluting his
Yep.
land in his area, and then he just got arrested, and it's terrible.
And it's not to mention the people that don't even make documentaries that have small protests or letter writing campaigns and stuff that go to jail because they talk about this kind of stuff. So we weren't able to talk about it.
No, we couldn't talk about it. Look, it's quite common that small villages in the rural areas, they will start to develop cancer and weird things. I remember watching a program on TV in China about like how this one farmer found that all of his chickens were developing throat cancer.
Yeah.
His chickens. Okay,
Upset,
I didn't even know chickens could get throat cancer.
I was laughing.
But yeah, no, his chickens were getting, and everyone in the village was getting cancer. And turns
out they're smoking a pack a day.
Well, no, it was, there was definitely not. These chickens were certainly not like smoking.
In
Camels
China they were getting those monkeys to smoke cigarettes.
That's true. No, but I mean, the fact is there was a chemical factory that opened nearby, and it affected the well water that they were all drinking.
So now that you bring up water, right? This is a horrifying statistic, but 80% of groundwater in China is contaminated and polluted.
That's 80%.
The problem with this is you say, okay, just boil it, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about pathogens like bacteria. We're talking about heavy metals and things that go into your kidneys and cause reproductive harm.
Yeah, that you can't boil out of the water.
No. So actually, there's a huge amount of reproductive health hospitals for men and women in China that deal with cysts and growths and cancers.
Yes.
And that is due to groundwater, which gets into the food sources.
Absolutely.
Right? So when you have 80% of your groundwater that's contaminated, and this is beyond any sort of level that you would find appropriate. This is not like, oh, that's the American standard. They should use a different one. No. This is just contaminated. You can't use it.
Yeah, you can't. Look at they're the rice paddies, by the way, where the crabs are supposed to live.
Yeah, it looks nice. You would never know. 90% of groundwater in the cities is contaminated. So the places we lived, most of the groundwater is contaminated.
Yeah, 90%.
We also found out that a lot of these bottling facilities that get drinking water will be actually getting contaminated water, as we caught them doing in landfills.
Oh, dude. Where I used to live in Shenzhen, when I lived a little outside of the town in Buji, remember? There was an area I'd go ride my motorcycle in, which was a little bit rural. And they had a big fire hose there, which is obviously, like a fire hydrant, okay? And I would catch the little mianbaochers, the little vans would go there, and they'd be filling up those office water coolers with that fire hydrant water. That's right next to where they had like crops. It was next to a highway and stuff. What are they doing with that?
You remember
they're going to sell it.
The bottling facility for the office water jugs in Huizhou at the landfill? We saw them filling up. Caught them on camera.
By the way, here you can see in the background, you are busy digging around looking for crabs at this point. But I'd like to point out, if anyone could see the bottles lying on the ground behind you there.
Yes.
Okay? So you were digging around looking for crabs, and of course you didn't find any. We found no crabs in the rice paddies there.
Yet they are crabs.
I mean, yeah, they do grow them there.
And people eat them, and you'll find out why that's bad.
Sure. Well, you know what we found not only lying next to the rice paddy behind you there, as you saw a little earlier, but actually floating in the water, we found some bottles. Now I'm going to get us out of here, okay? Yes. These, just in that one little area that you were poking around, we found these 5 bottles.
So all around us, up and down the road, I mean, we can just estimate we found 100.
Yeah, totally.
At least 100 in that small area.
These empty bottles lying around on the side of the rice paddies.
Yeah.
So this stuff's being dumped into the rice and floating in the water. We fished out.
Yeah, they're in the water.
We fished out some of these.
Yes.
So what are these bottles that we found? So now, this is us finding these things in the rice paddies, right?
Right. So the first one is acetochlor, which is an herbicide. It kills weeds and stuff like that. And the other ones are glyphosate, which is that banned in some areas, chemical from Monsanto. Now, the issue with this is it causes cancer, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's a huge, massive issue, but it causes cancer in fairly high quantities, right? So when you're using herbicides like this in the EU or in the US, the reason that they're allowed in certain areas is because there's a certain standard and amount that they use, certain crops they use them on, certain standards of safety that the FDA comes and checks on.
Yeah, and they make sure that it doesn't have any runoff into like bodies of water and that kind of thing.
Where you're going to consume it.
Yeah.
These were being dumped into the rice paddies.
Yeah.
So not only are they going into the rice, right? So this is not spraying on the leaves.
No.
These are being dumped into the water for the rice production, but the crabs. So there are millions of crabs in these paddies that get sold all around northern China because they're famous.
Yeah, they're famous from this area.
Because the crabs are living in these clean rice paddies
that
are sucking up glyphosate.
Yeah, they consist of glyphosate.
They are made of glyphosate.
Half, 3/4 glyphosate. Okay.
Jokes aside, that's a massive issue because filter feeders like crabs or things that are eating and filtering chemicals out of food, that's going into the meat, right? Yeah. So when you're straight up consuming that's not like eating beef or something that's been contaminated. That's a solid animal that is like literally sucking up pure chemicals, carcinogenic chemicals. So not to mention the rice production here, which is Liaoning rice, very, very famous all over China for being dongbei rice, fat kernels, very similar to Japanese rice, but is now being completely contaminated by glyphosate.
Oh, come on. Virginity is cool. What up? What up? Virginity is cool. He's got it. He's got it. Virginity is cool. Come on. Come on. Virginity is cool. What up? What up?
Cyber criminals are getting more sophisticated every day, and they're getting increasingly difficult to spot. But some of their attack methods work the same way that they did 10 years ago. So you got to avoid divulging things like your first pet's name or the street you grew up on or your mother's maiden name to perfect strangers, since security questions are still in use today, and it's easy to get answers to them with a bit of social engineering. The solution? Well, you say, I'm too smart to fall for such things. I use two-factor authentication and unique passwords for all my accounts. Yes, but if you connect to an unprotected Wi-Fi daily, like during your commute or lunch hour or while grabbing coffee after work, once you're connected to an unprotected Wi-Fi network, cyber criminals can use session hijacking, man-in-the-middle attacks, packet sniffing, and various malware to steal your login credentials and wreak havoc on your accounts. Don't be overconfident, use a VPN daily, and actively protect yourself from cyber criminals. The VPN that we choose to use is NordVPN. It's the easiest one to use. You can hop around to different servers around the world, make sure that your identity, your credit card information, all that stuff that you do and use on the internet is completely safe from prying eyes. Don't forget to go to nordvpn.com/ADVChina. Not only are you gonna get a massive, huge discount off of a 2-year plan, you're also gonna get a free additional month. So definitely go over there, check it out, help support the channel. We appreciate it.
Never mind the fact that these rice paddies, it's water, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna soak into the groundwater. Yes. This is where all this contamination comes from. You see, there's no oversight and it's abused.
Yes, so that's the issue.
They're like, okay, this helps the plants grow and
we heard farmers use this in America.
Yeah. Also, they call it nongyao. Okay.
Nongyao,
which just means farmer medicine. Yeah. Okay. That's literally pesticide.
Medicine,
Whenever we would ride around the more rural parts of China, we would see them in the rice paddies, like with those big pumping things, just like spraying it on everything, and they just take this stuff and dump it in. It's not properly measured out. It's abused, and so that's what leads to big issues. Like you were saying, the reproductive issues are horrendous. My wife had to go get some cysts taken out.
Yeah.
It was awful. I had to take her, and there was a surgery and an operation. And while I was in that women's hospital, there were young women, like in their 20s, all there getting similar surgeries.
What do you think that's from?
Just to me, it was so strange that there were so many young women. Because you might expect an older woman in menopause or something's having some kind of cancer, like but this was like young women, tons of them.
Every single, and this is older, but every single one of my wife's aunts and her mother have had partial or full hysterectomies.
Right.
Just taking it all out because of carcinogenic growth.
Yeah, and I mean, the men are affected too, as you know, there's Kannan Ke hospitals everywhere. But, just to show you that this is actual real proof of this is something we found ourselves.
I mean, there must have been hundreds of these bottles that were laying around here. It's crazy.
So,
and it goes further than this.
Okay, it goes further, right?
The issue is with food production, what they're trying to do is maximize their arable land here, which I understand. They just you can't teach, like a farmer here in the U.S., right? They go to colleges to learn about stuff. They learn about food production stuff. These guys here in China, I'm not going to blame them because they are at the bottom of society. People look down on them. The government doesn't subsidize them. They get no help. Right? They're basically subsistence farmers that try to turn a profit. By taking advantage of situations like this. Of course, they're going to dump a bunch of chemicals in there.
Yeah, if you don't put growth hormone in your stuff, you're just not going to make enough.
So you get these people that are trying to take advantage of the fact that China only has 13% of arable land.
13. Think about that. China's massive.
Right. So it needs to feed 1.4 billion people. So what is it? Like 20% of the world's population. with 13% of its own arable land. The U.S. is the same size as China. It has 17% arable land and only 300 or 400 million people.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's much easier to feed. So
Sure.
we, in terms of science and stuff, they call that a food sufficient country.
Yeah.
Or a food
Deficient country.
And you basically talk about the percentage of how much food you have to feed your own populace before you need to import.
Yeah.
Problem with China is that arable land went down 6% in 10 years because of real estate development.
Dude, you hear it all the time. They take the farmers' land away to build some stupid like high-rise.
And they're regretting
Yeah.
it now because you have a country that needs over 7% of all of its food security, it's called food security,
Yeah.
to be imported.
Yeah.
Whereas the U.S. is so food secure that it exports a lot of its food.
Of course.
It's a wildly different scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it, of course, it's down to whether you're lucky or not to have arable land. I get that. But management has been very poor in China where they've already polluted all of the groundwater, almost all of the groundwater, and covered up 6% to bring that arable land down to 13% in 10 years.
It's really,
bad.
it's stupid.
Bad.
So polluting it and taking the land away for the ridiculous real estate projects.
Yeah, but what about meat? Because
Yeah.
it goes further than that.
Well, I mean, you hear about this a lot. Of course, all of the meat in China, they use steroids and growth hormones when it comes to, doesn't matter if it's chickens or pigs or,
Usually pigs.
yeah, whatever it is. And it's so well known that the Olympics athletes that are going to this genocide Olympics, the 2022 Olympic Beijing Olympics, they've been warned not to eat. The anti-doping agencies have warned them not to eat Chinese meat because they might then test positive for, like human steroid enhancement drugs. You know what I mean? And not only them, the Chinese anti-doping agency has told the Chinese athletes not to eat local
So they
food
don't want them
either.
to get disqualified.
Yeah, because you'll get disqualified. So they're like, do not eat local pork.
Yes.
Do not eat local meat. It
This
shows you.
happens with every animal, like you said. So you see with a fish, they'll dump hormone after hormone. You get these fat fish. I remember there's this fish farm that I went to, and they were very famous for serving this fish that's almost extinct.
Yeah,
And it's very notoriously difficult to farm.
yeah.
What they were doing is just fattening them up. So they got tons of meat out of one fish, but they're using hormones.
Yeah.
These monster pigs that you find in China,
Oh,
they're
those
huge.
Dude,
They're
those
beasts, they're like
hogs.
cows.
Remember that one we saw in the back of this trike or whatever? It was
It's a monster.
so crazy, yeah.
It's like, it's 10 times bigger than me.
Yeah, it's so much bigger than any pig you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, and it's, again, this is growth hormones, right?
Remember the farmer used too much growth hormones on his watermelons and they all exploded?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's quite
happens.
common.
Now,
Yeah.
the problem, and the way I want to sum this up, is actually China's going to have a really big problem with food if it goes the route of trying to alienate the rest of the world. Like
Well,
it's
that's
been
what
doing.
they're doing.
They are trying to expand, so they're getting soybeans from Brazil and trying to find other countries that will be more apt to help because they want those kind of the loans from China
Sure.
and things like that.
Well, Africa is going to probably be their bread basket.
basket,
They're
yeah.
going to go to Africa and just start farming stuff there and taking over there and getting their food from Africa. I think that's how it's going to work because unfortunately they've destroyed, the arable land in China is really all polluted and disgusting.
I don't know if any of you guys out there follow any sort of Star Wars lore, but the Hutts in their home planet of Nal Hutta was completely destroyed because of pollution, and they had to move to other worlds to survive. They're kind of where we're at right now with the Chinese government.
Seems that way, huh? Seems that way.
In fact, something that people have not really been talking about is the reason why global food prices have been going up, and that unfortunately is due to China. There's a lot of criticism surrounding China. It's the world's second biggest economy and it accounts for 20% of the entire population of the entire world. But because of the pandemic, well, at least that's what the Chinese government is saying, it's hoarding all its supplies. So it's actually holding 69%, almost 70% of the world's corn reserves, 60% of its rice, and 51% of its wheat. And that's according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're doing this because, like I said, the pandemic, they're concerned about another wave, so they want to have enough food for their people. That's one thing, but another thing is that it's leading to massive price spikes in food prices all around the world, and it's not fair because it's not actually proportional to the size of its population. It leads to a lot of speculation about what's actually going on behind the scenes in China.
Another thing that's probably a bit of a creepy thing was right there next to the rice fields, we found a bunch of graves as well. See there? Yeah. There's a graves right there. Yeah, so look, China faces a big problem, and unfortunately, China's reliance on the rest of the world is actually great. Many people might think, oh, we rely on China because they're the factory of the world and we need all their, them to make everything. But actually, China relies on the rest of the world, not only
for essentials.
Well, not only to buy things from them and give them money because they're making this stuff, so they rely on that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I mean, how else would they get the money? Right? So they rely on that, but they also rely heavily on the rest of the world for things like food.
Yeah.
And, fresh water and what have you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's a big thing. Anyway, don't go randomly just eating lots of Chinese food when you're in China. Be careful.
I was more likely to. I wanted to end by saying, be very skeptical when you have people using China as a glowing example of how eco-production and green technology and all stuff is the future. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but China is the polar opposite of the country you want to be following for this kind of stuff.
That's definitely the best way to put it. Is be careful. Look at what China's done to its own country, its own soil, its own groundwater before you start saying how great they are at this green technology.
Oh yeah, because they haven't stopped.
No, they just keep creating more coal power plants, and these scandals where the villages are all getting poisoned and cancer and stuff keep happening.
Don't rely on the fact that news is censored in China to make you feel better or placated about this.
There's another thing, more and more I'm starting to see food products where you buy it in the supermarket in the States and it says product of China. Don't buy those.
No.
Don't, because you can never be sure that they're okay.
Yeah, like the Costco fish that says wild caught in Alaska, product of China.
That's probably just their illegal fishing boats going there and scooping everything
labeled.
up. Yeah, I know. But yeah, seriously, I would stay away from those. Make sure you know where your produce is coming from. Don't just go buy it and say it's okay.
I would not be buying food out of China.
No.
I think it's for your own health.
Yeah, just for your own health.
I mean, rich people in China import their own food for a reason.
Every single person that I know who had money in China would not eat local produce.
Yeah,
they wouldn't. They would import everything. Get it in from Hong Kong. Get it in from the rest of the world. They're getting their
Taiwan,
steaks.
America.
Yeah, they're actually getting their
Australia.
steaks and stuff sent to them from overseas
because they don't
Australian
want to eat
beef.
growth hormones.
Yeah.
It's not the growth hormones you're finding in other places. It's like times 50.
Yeah, it's like they will dump the whole bucket in there. Anyway, guys,
you get the point.
Yeah, can't wait to see you in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this one, and until then, you know the drill. As always, stay awesome.